Today we're diving into a chapter of Canadian history where laws and politics were shaking things up. Sometimes for the better, but often at the expense of fairness and equality. Between 1850 and 1890, Canada made big decisions that shaped the nation. But those decisions weren't always kind to everyone. Let's uncover the stories behind these changes and see who was affected. First up, the U.S. Fugitive Slave Act of 1850. This wasn't a Canadian law, but it had a huge impact here. In the United States, this law made it illegal to help enslaved people escape, forcing many freedom seekers to flee north to Canada, where slavery had been abolished in 1834. Imagine what that journey must have been like, escaping under the cover of night, crossing rivers, and trusting strangers to guide you. Once in Canada, these individuals found safety and built communities, especially in Ontario. But freedom didn't mean an easy life. Black Canadians still faced racism and barriers to jobs and education. It's a powerful example of resilience and the fight for equality. Next, let's talk about the British North America Act of 1867, the law that created Canada as we know it. This act brought together Ontario, Quebec, New Brunswick, and Nova Scotia into one country, the Dominion of Canada. It also set up a federal system of government, meaning some powers went to the provinces and others stayed with the national government. For settlers, this was an exciting step toward independence from Britain. But not everyone was included in this vision of the future. Women and racial minorities had no say in government, leaving them out of decisions that affected their lives. Now let's head west to British Columbia, where the BC Qualification of Voters Act of 1872 was a stark reminder of how laws could enforce discrimination. This act specifically banned Chinese Canadians and Indigenous peoples from voting. Imagine being told you couldn't have a voice in decisions that shaped your community simply because of who you were. At the same time, Chinese laborers were building the Canadian Pacific Railway under dangerous and unfair conditions. This law showed how prejudice was baked into the system, even as these workers were helping to build the country. Then there's the national policy, introduced by Prime Minister John A. Macdonald in 1879. Think of it as Canada's first big economic plan. It included protective tariffs to help Canadian businesses, massive railway construction to connect the country, and immigration to encourage settlement in the West. On the surface, it sounded great for Canada's growth, right? But there's a twist. The policy heavily relied on immigrant labor, especially from China, to build the railway. These workers faced low pay, dangerous jobs, and when the work was done, a discriminatory head tax. While the policy helped businesses and settlers thrive, it came at a high cost for many immigrants. Each of these political and legal changes left a mark on Canada. For Black Canadians, escaping slavery brought safety, but not full equality. For settlers, laws like the British North America Act and the national policy created opportunities. But for Chinese Canadians and Indigenous peoples, these changes reinforced exclusion and systemic barriers. By understanding these moments, we can see how laws and policies can shape society, for better or worse. They also remind us of the resilience of those who fought for justice and equality, paving the way for a fairer future.